My name is Alani, and I'm your business financial consultant from the Willie Factory Small Business Incubator. As for today, our session is about understanding your business costs and revenues. So before we get started, I want to ask you guys a question. So, how much do you know about your costs? So I'll let you pause the video and wait. Alright, so after you pause and think about it, and you want to say what your answer is, let's talk about the table of contents. So for our table of contents for today, in our session, we want to identify overheads and unit costs. The second thing, we're going to talk about knowing your fixed and variable costs. And the third thing will be talk about develop a pricing, revenue, and profit strategy. So let's get on to the session. So right now we're going to talk about identifying overhead and unit costs. So let's start with the overhead. So what is overhead cost? So the overhead cost is expensive, not directly tied to production, but essential for business operations. And as an example, let's think about examples like rent, utilities, final salaries for administrative staff, insurance premium. Those are like great examples. Now let's talk about unit cost. So what is a unit cost? So a unit cost is like cost per unit of products or services produced. And usually how you calculate the cost, which is divide total production cost by the number of units produced. So let's talk about this slide, fixed cost. So what is a fixed cost? So a fixed cost is expenses that remains constant regardless of production levels. So as a sustainability, fixed costs do not fluctuate with changes in production, output, or sales volume. The formula for a fixed cost per unit, the formula will be is fixed cost divided by the units. Now, in the next slide, let's talk about examples. So what are examples of fixed costs? So we got rent or mortgage payments, which remains constant regardless of production levels. Another thing, we have the insurance premium that is typically fixed amounts paid periodically, which is like, if your business like paid monthly, quarterly, or annually. Another thing we have is salaries for permanent staff, as it sets salaries agreed upon contractually and unaffected by production variations. And as for depreciation of assets, depreciation expenses spread evenly regardless of production to output. Since we already talked about fixed costs, now let's talk about variable costs. So what is a variable cost? So a variable cost is expenses that fluctuate based on production levels, like raw materials and labor. In the dependency of it, variable costs increase or decrease proportionally with changes in production or sales. The formula of the total variable cost, which is quantity of output times the variable cost per unit of output. And now, in the next slide, as examples I put up, which is one, raw material or inventory, which is very based on production levels and market prices. Next is direct labor costs, which is based on production levels and increase with higher production volumes, decreases during slowdowns. Another thing would be packaging and shipping costs, which is cost influenced by the number of units shipped and ship distance. And then the last thing I believe would be sales and commissions, which is commission expenses tied to sales. Performance variable with sales fluctuations. Alright, so for this slide, we're going to do some example ideas to give you how this works. So let's say this owner owns a cookie bakery. So in this slide right here, there's particulars and amount. There's a total sales. They make $300,000. Their gross profit will be $120,000. And as for cost of raw materials, they have, which is $80,000. And for direct labor costs, that'll be $50,000. Now, since we know the numbers, how do you find the cost of goods sold? Now, in highlight, the cost of goods sold, that would be total sales minus the gross profit. So what's the total sales? The total sales I said is $300,000. And what's the gross profit? That'll be $120,000. So if you do the total sale of $300,000 minus the gross profit, which is $120,000, you'll get the total of $180,000. Now, let's talk about the manufacturing overhead. How do you solve that? So, which is the cost of goods sold minus the cost of raw materials and minus the direct labor costs. If you combine that, all three of those, your total will be $50,000. All right, so after we talk about the sample ones, let's talk about the next section, which is develop a pricing, revenue, and profit strategy. I believe this is the last one for this session. So let's talk about develop a pricing strategy. So, developing a pricing strategy, you need to consider both cost and market demand when setting prices. Prices should cover like both variable and fixed costs while allowing for a reasonable profit margin. A pricing strategy can be based on market, positioning, competition, and target audience. Let's talk about the consideration part of it. There are three considerations, which is 1, cost coverage, 2, market demand, and 3, value proposition. So in the left side, which is cost coverage, what is it? Prices should cover both variable and fixed costs to ensure profitability. The market demand will be prices should align with customers' willingness to pay in a competitive landscape. And the third one would be value position, which is to reflect the value offering by your products or services compared to competitors. So there are 4 boxes I put up about the strategies. Let's talk about the first one in the top left corner, which is the cost plus pricing. And what that is adding a markup of the cost of production to determine the selling price. On the top right side, we have the value-based pricing, which is setting prices based on the perceived value of the product service to customers. Now the bottom left, next one would be competitive pricing, which is pricing in line with or slightly below competitors' prices to gain market shares. And the bottom right, which the last one would be dynamic pricing, which is adjusting prices in real time based on factors such as demand, seasonally, or inventory levels. For this slide, I put up 3 goals of the pricing strategy. So let's talk about the 3 goals. The first goal I have, which is profit maximization, and what that is achieving the highest possible profit margin while remaining competitive. The second thing would be market penetration, as in setting lower prices to enter a new market or gain market shares. And the last thing will be market stability, as in maintaining constant pricing to build customers' trust and loyalty. Alright, since we already talked the pricing strategy, let's go on to develop a revenue strategy. Alright, so there are a few things that you need to know about developing a revenue strategy, which is the first thing on the bullet point, which is focus on increasing revenue by maximizing sale volume, average transaction volume, or frequency of transactions. Another thing is that you want to implement strategies such as upselling, cross-selling, and bundling to increase revenue per customer. And lastly will be regularly review and adjust pricing and sales strategies based on market dynamics and customers' feedback. Now let's talk about the maximizing revenue. So how do you maximize your revenue? There are 3 things I have, which is 1, increase sales volume, and that is implement a market strategy to attract more customers and increase transaction frequency. Another thing will be increase average transaction value, as in encourage your customers to spend more per transaction through like maybe upselling, cross-selling, or premium offering. And the last thing will be increase frequency of transaction, as in encourage repeat business through loyalty, program subscriptions, or promotional offers. Alright, now let's talk about the strategies. So the 4 strategies that came up like in each box, let's talk about it. So we have upselling, and that is offering customers a higher end or upgraded version of products and services. Now, the cross-selling. You want to suggest related or complementary products and services to increase the overall sales. And as for the bundling, you want to offering products, services together at discounted prices to encourage largest purchases. And as for subscription models, you want to offer recurring payment plans for ongoing access to products and services. Let's talk about the customer focus and improvement. So the customer's focus. There are 2 bullet points I put up that you need to focus on when it comes to customer focus. Which is 1, you need to understand like customer needs and preferences to tailor offerings and pricing strategies accordingly. Another thing, you want to provide exceptional customer service to exchange satisfaction and encourage repeat businesses. Now, if you want to continue your improvement of your company, you want to regularly analyze sales data and customer feedback to identify opportunities to revenue growth. And for experiment with different pricing and promotion strategies to optimize revenue generations while maintaining customer value perception. Since we already talked about the revenue strategy, let's talk about how we're going to develop a profit strategy. So, there are 3 things to develop a profit strategy. 1 is to aim to maximize profit by optimizing cost efficiency and revenue generation. Another thing you want to have is to monitor and control costs by identifying areas for cost reduction or optimization. And the last thing you need to know is continuously analyze financial performance metrics to ensure profitability goals are met. So in this slide right here, we're going to talk about cost optimization. So there are a few things about cost optimization. You want to identify cost reduction opportunities, which is analyze expenses to identify areas where costs can be reduced without compromising quantity. Another thing you want to know is that you want to improve operational efficiency, as in streamline processes to workflows to minimize waste and improve productively, my bad. And then the third thing, you want to have to negotiate with suppliers. So you want to negotiate favorable terms with suppliers to lower procurement costs. That's help you save money. So now, let's talk about the revenue maximization pricing. Now, how are you going to do the revenue maximization pricing? So there are 3 things I have, which is 1, optimization, which is continuously review and adjust pricing strategies to maximize revenue while remaining competitive. The second thing, you want to expand market reach. So as explore new market or customer segments to increase sales potentials. And the last thing is enhance products or services offerings, as in innovate and improve products and services to increase perceived value and attract more customers. Now, let's talk about the financial management. I think everyone needs to know about that. There are 3 things about financial management. 1 is monitor key performances indicator, or short for KPIs. Totally easier. What that is track metrics such as the gross profit margin, net profit margin, and return on investment to assess financial health. Another thing is cash flow management, as in maintain healthy cash flow by optimizing payment terms, managing inventory levels, and ensuring timely invoicing and collection. For the risk management, you want to identify and mitigate financial risks such as market volatility, changes in regulations, or unexpected expenses. Let's talk about the long-term sustainability. And there are things you need to know if you want to have your company to have long-term sustainability, which is, let's go for the first step is to invest in research and development, and that is allocate resources to research and development initiatives to stay competitive and drive future growth. Now, the next step, you want to build resilience, as in develop continuously plans and strategies to withstand economic downturns or unforeseen challenges. The third step, that we foster a culture of continuous improvement that encourage your innovation and learning within the organization to adapt to changing market conditions and seize opportunities for growth. Thank you for watching. This video is made possible by WSMA and William Factory Small Business Incubator. Stay tuned for more business finance workshops in the future.